The email hit my inbox like a gut punch at 3 a.m. The subject line screaming in all caps. Your manuscript is a revelation, but you're hiding. I bolted upright in my Brooklyn walk-up, heart slamming against my ribs, the glow of my laptop screen carving shadows across the peeling wallpaper. And there it was, her name in the sender field. Faith Harlan, the woman who'd chained me to a life I never chose. Back when sun-drenched Spanish hills hid secrets sharper than any knife. I slammed the laptop shut, but it was too late. The words had already clawed their way in, stirring ghosts I'd buried under pseudonyms and takeout containers. How the hell had she found me? After 5 years of silence, of reinventing myself as Evie Lane, the anonymous voice of quiet queer heartbreaks in indie lit mags, she was back, not as a specter, but as my new editor at Willow Press. The rain-slick streets of Brooklyn blurred past my window as the F train rattled me toward the Willow Press offices in Dumbo, the East River a gray smear under November skies. I clutched my messenger bag like a shield, the unpublished pages of Echoes in Amber, my debut novel, burning a hole through the canvas. It was supposed to be my big break. A tale of fractured love in a sun-baked foreign land, veiled just enough to keep my real scars hidden. But now it felt like a confession scrawled in invisible ink, waiting for her to wave a flame over it. Faith Harlan. Even her name tasted like salt and regret, like the Mediterranean spray that had once soaked us during that endless summer in Catalonia. I'd been 23 then, fresh out of Sarah Lawrence with a backpack full of dreams and a heart too open for its own good. Barcelona had called to me like a siren's song. The labyrinthine Gothic quarter, the gaudy spires twisting toward the heavens, the pulse of flamenco echoing from Hidden to Burness. I was there on a whim, a writing fellowship that promised solitude and inspiration, but what I found was her. She'd been 30, a force of nature disguised as an expat editor for a small American lit journal based in Madrid. Tall with that effortless command that made rooms tilt in her direction, Faith had auburn hair that caught the light like autumn leaves and eyes the color of storm-tossed seas. We met at a reading in a cramped bookstore off La Rambla, where I stammered through a short story about a girl unraveling in the shadows of Sagrada Familia. She cornered me afterward, glass of Tempranillo in hand, her voice low and velvet-edged. You've got fire in those words, Eviana, but you're holding back. Let me show you how to burn. I should have seen the alpha in her then, the way she leaned in too close, the subtle flex of her jaw when she didn't get her way. But I was starving for validation, for someone to see the queer ache I'd carried since my conservative Texas upbringing tried to iron it flat. Faith became my guide, my muse, my everything. We tumbled into a whirlwind romance amid the orange groves of Valencia. Her rented villa a cocoon of silk sheets and whispered promises. She'd trace the freckles across my collarbone with calloused fingertips, remnants of her hiking days in the Pyrenees, and murmur how I was her wild thing, the spark she'd been chasing since her own messy divorce back in Seattle. But love in Spain wasn't the fairy tale I'd scripted in my head. Faith's intensity bordered on possession. She'd map my days like a general plotting a campaign. Sunrise walks along the Costa Brava, afternoons lost in her library of dog-eared Neruda, evenings where she'd challenge me to bare my soul over plates of paella steaming with saffron. You're mine to shape, she'd say, half teasing, half deadly serious, her hand firm on the small of my back as we navigated crowded plazas. I mistook it for passion, for the kind of all-consuming devotion I'd read about in Plath and Wolf. God, I was naive. The first crack came in a hillside village near Tarragona, where the air smelled of olive blossoms and ancient stone. We'd hiked to a ruined monastery at dawn, the sky bleeding pink over the sea. I confessed my fears, the novel I'd abandoned back home, the family letters piling up unread, the gnawing doubt that I wasn't queer enough, bold enough to claim this life. Faith listened, then pulled me close, her breath hot against my ear. You don't need them, Ev. You have me. I'll build your world so tight. Nothing can touch you but us. It started small. The phone she borrowed to delete voicemails from my meddling sister. The itinerary she rewrote without asking, steering us deeper into Catalonia's rugged interior. By midsummer, we were isolated in a finca she'd leased in the Emporta region. A sprawling estate ringed by cork oaks and barbed wire that felt more like a fortress than a home. She called it our creative sanctuary. But it was a cage gilded with bougainvillea. My laptop's battery died one night. She'd unplugged it, claiming distractions killed genius, and when I pushed back her eyes flashed like lightning over the Balearics. I'm protecting you, Eviana. From yourself. Can't you see that? I couldn't leave. Not when she looked at me like I was the only star in her sky. Not when her touch unraveled me thread by thread. We made love under fig trees heavy with fruit, her body a landscape of strength and surrender, and I'd convince myself this was devotion, not dominance. Faith was my alpha in every sense, the one who led, who decided, who held the reins so tightly they chafed but never quite broke skin. She edited my stories with ruthless precision, slashing sentences like dead branches, reshaping my voice until it echoed hers. This is us, she'd say, handing back pages smeared with red ink. Raw. Real. Unbreakable. But unbreakable things shatter loudest. The betrayal brewed slow, like a storm gathering over the Sierra de Tramontana. It was late August, the heat a living thing that pressed against the villa's tiled roof. I'd snuck out at twilight for a walk, a rare rebellion, and stumbled upon her in the study, phone pressed to her ear, voice a hiss of urgency. Yes, I know the risks, but she's perfect. Vulnerable. The board will love the authenticity. We'll anonymize it. Spin it as memoir. She was pitching me. My half-formed novel, the one she'd helped refine, twisted into a commodity for her career climb back in the States. Willow Press, her old firm, was scouting fresh voices, and I was the unwitting prize. I froze in the doorway, the world tilting like a funhouse mirror. All those nights she'd sworn my words were sacred, that our isolation was for art's sake. It was a setup. She wasn't shaping me. She was sculpting a success story from my bones. When she saw me, her face crumpled, then hardened. Ev, it's not. You sold me, I whispered, the words foreign on my tongue. Like I'm some plot device. The fight that followed was biblical. Plates shattering against terracotta floors. Accusations hurled like thunderclaps. She grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise but firm enough to remind me of the power imbalance we danced around for months. I did this for us. To get you published, to lift you out of obscurity. But her eyes betrayed her. The calculation, the control slipping away. I fled that night, hitching a ride to Barcelona in the back of a vintner's truck, the sea a black void mirroring the hollow in my chest. Faith's texts bombarded me for weeks. Apologies laced with pleas, promises to fix it all. I changed my number, my email, vanished into the ether of hostels and odd jobs until I could afford a one-way flight to JFK. Brooklyn became my reinvention. A shoebox apartment in Bed-Stuy, gigs as a barista by day, scribbling under Ivy Lane by night. I wrote about echoes, about loves that lingered like smoke, but never the full truth. Until Echoes in Amber, my opus, the one that stripped too close to the bone. Now, stepping off the train into Dumbo's warehouse chic, I steeled myself. Willow Press occupied a converted tobacco factory. All exposed brick and fairy lights strung like hopeful veins. The receptionist buzzed me up, her smile too perky for the knot in my gut. Faith's expecting you. Conference room, end of the hall. I paused at the door, hand on the knob, breath shallow. What if she didn't remember? What if she did, and this was her twisted redemption arc? Pushing in, I found her at the head of a glass table, surrounded by proofs and coffee mugs, her auburn hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun. She looked older, lines etched around her eyes like maps of regrets. But that alpha posture, shoulders squared, chin lifted, it was all there. Eviana, she said, rising slowly, her voice a ghost from sunlit orchards. The room's other editors glanced up, oblivious, but the air between us crackled like dry lightning. Or should I say Evie Lane? Welcome to the family. I slid into the seat across from her, forcing a nod, my pulse a war drum. Just Ev, please. And thanks. For the opportunity. Her gaze lingered, probing, and for a split second, I saw the villa's shadows in her eyes, the chains I'd forged myself, link by link. The meeting blurred into notes on pacing, character arcs, market viability, but every word she spoke felt like a key turning in a long-forgotten lock. When it ended, the others filed out, leaving us alone amid the scent of fresh ink and old wounds. You've grown into your voice, she said softly, stacking papers with deliberate care. It's haunting. Like reading my own heart on the page. I swallowed, the hook of her words pulling taut. Funny how echoes work. They bounce back when you least expect. She leaned forward, elbows on the table, that familiar intensity flaring. Ev about Spain. Don't. The word cracked like a whip. This is business. Edit the book. Not the past. But as I gathered my bag and stood, her hand brushed mine. Accidental, electric, and the room spun. 5 years and she still unraveled me. Walking out into the crisp Brooklyn air, I wondered if freedom was just another pretty cage, or if this time I'd finally learned to fly. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance on a fraying tightrope. Faith's edits arrived via track changes, each suggestion a scalpel. Deepen the betrayal here, make it visceral. I'd stare at the screen, fingers hovering, remembering how she'd once wielded her red pen like a lover's caress. Our interactions stayed professional, curt emails, scheduled calls where her voice stayed clipped, mine laced with frost. But beneath it, the pull was there, magnetic and merciless, drawing me back to memories I'd inked into fiction. Brooklyn, with its graffiti-strewn stoops and indie coffee shops buzzing with aspiring poets, was my anchor. I'd pound the pavement from Greenpoint to Williamsburg, notebook in hand, chasing snippets of dialogue from overheard conversations. A dyke couple arguing over dim sum, their laughter brittle as autumn leaves. My therapist, a no-nonsense butch named Carla with tattoos snaking up her arms, called it reclaiming the narrative. You let her write your ending once, she'd say over herbal tea in her Crown Heights office. Don't hand her the pen again. Yet I couldn't shake the what-ifs. What if Echoes flopped without her polish? What if publishing it unmasked me, dragging Spain's skeletons into the light? Faith knew the fault lines in my story because she'd carved them herself. One rainy Tuesday, after a particularly brutal revision round, she invited me to her loft in Cobble Hill for an in-person sync. I told myself it was logistics, plot holes to plug, timelines to align, but my reflection in the subway glass showed a woman chasing ghosts. Her place was a revelation. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves groaning under hardcovers, a skylight framing the city's electric hum, a kitchen island scarred from midnight feasts. She poured us glasses of Rioja, a nod to old times minus the drama, and we spread pages across the counter, redlining passages until our fingers brushed ink stains. The air thickened with unspoken history, her laugh a low rumble when I quipped about a character's implausible escape. "You're different here," she said eventually, leaning against the fridge, arms crossed in that alpha stance that once caged me. Stronger. The Eviana I knew would have crumbled under these cuts. I met her gaze, the wine warming my veins. The Eviana you knew was a kid playing house in someone else's villa. This one's got Brooklyn in her bones, tough, messy, real. She stepped closer, the space between us shrinking like a held breath. I was wrong back then. Controlling. I thought love meant owning the chaos, taming it. But you taught me loss. The confession hung there, raw as an open wound, and for a heartbeat, I saw the woman beneath the editor, vulnerable, human, the Faith who'd wept into my hair after a nightmare about her ex's ghost. My resolve wavered, the romantic in me whispering of second chances, of mending what Spain had torn. But then her hand lifted, hovering near my cheek, and memory surged. The finca's locked gate, the deleted calls, the pitch that sold my soul for her ladder rung. I pulled back, chair scraping like a verdict. Love isn't a leash, Faith. It's a bridge. And you burned ours. She flinched but nodded, the alpha mask cracking just enough to let regret bleed through. Then let's build something new. For the book. For whatever this is. I left with revisions tucked under my arm and a heart tangled in thorns, the Brooklyn Bridge lights winking like distant stars as I walked home. Sleep evaded me that night, the city's siren wail a counterpoint to the drama uncoiling in my chest. Was this redemption or recursion? Only the pages would tell. Winter clamped down on New York like a jealous lover, blanketing Brooklyn in snow that muffled the world's edges. Echoes and Amber was due for final proofs by January, and the pressure built like a nor'easter. Deadlines looming, my agent pinging for updates, Faith's feedback a relentless tide eroding my defenses. We'd settled into a rhythm. Virtual meetings where her critiques sharpened my prose, late-night texts debating symbolism that veered perilously close to autobiography. The captor's remorse feels earned here, she'd write and I'd fire back. Only if you believe alphas can change. Truth was she was good at this, damn good. Her notes transformed my meandering draft into a taut drama of forbidden desire and shattered trust, set against Catalonia's ochre cliffs and hidden coves. Readers would devour the romance. The protagonist, a wide-eyed writer named Leah, falling for the enigmatic editor Sophia in a Barcelona shadowed by Civil War ghosts. The betrayal, Sophia leaking Leah's manuscript for personal gain. Hit like a gut shot. The climax, a rain-lashed showdown on the Ramblas where truth spilled like gutter water. It was us, transposed but sanitized for the shelves. No real names, no lingering toxicity, just enough humanism to leave hearts aching for hope. Off the page, though, the lines blurred. Faith started showing up at my haunts, coincidentally, she'd claim, like the queer open mic at Pete's Candy Store in Williamsburg, where I'd read excerpts to a crowd of flannel-clad dreamers. There she was one February night, nursing a whiskey sour in the corner booth, her nod of approval warmer than the stage lights. Afterward, over pierogies at a dive next door, she confessed, "Your voice on stage. It's electric. Like that first reading in 18. I poked at my food, the vodka tonic doing little to dull the spark. Flatteries for the book jacket, Faith. What's the angle? No angle. She set her fork down, blue eyes steady. Just pride in what you've become. Pride. The word landed soft, disarming, and I hated how it stirred the embers I'd banked. Back in Spain, her pride had been possessive. My brilliant girl, she'd coo after a breakthrough paragraph. But here, in the hum of Brooklyn's underbelly, it felt earned, shared. We talked until closing, the conversation meandering from Woolf's feminism to the queer lit scene's gatekeeping. Her laugh freer, less guarded. When she walked me to the L train, snowflakes catching in her lashes, I let her hug me goodbye, brief, bone deep, a bridge's tentative first plank. The thaw came gradual, like spring coaxing crocuses from concrete. By March, proofs were locked and Willow pressed through a launch party at a loft in Bushwick. Exposed ducks, fairy lights, charcuterie boards groaning under artisanal cheeses. I arrived in a thrifted velvet blazer. Nerves jangling like loose change, Evie Lane's anonymity my armor. But Faith spotted me immediately, weaving through the crowd with 2 flutes of kava, her black dress hugging curves I'd once mapped by moonlight. To echoes, she toasted, clinking glasses, her smile a secret shared. And the woman who caught them. The party swirled around us. Agents schmoozing, authors air-kissing, a DJ spinning indie folk with a queer twist. Faith introduced me as our rising star, her hand light on my elbow, steering me through conversations that felt like spotlights. I caught whispers, Harlan's protégé, fresh off a Barcelona sabbatical, and bit back the urge to correct them. Protégé, try prisoner. Later, on the fire escape overlooking the glittering sprawl, we stole a moment amid the cigarette haze. The city thrummed below, a mosaic of lives intersecting like plot threads. This is surreal, I admitted, exhaling frost. Seeing my words in print, knowing you midwifed them. She leaned on the railing, wind tousling her hair. Midwife or monster? Pick one. Both. The honesty slipped out unbidden and she turned, face illuminated by a distant billboard's glow. In that light she looked achingly human, the lines of laughter and loss etched equal, the alpha softened by time's relentless hand. I replay that night in the study 1,000 times, she said, voice barely above the traffic hum. The call. Pitching you like a product. I was desperate. Willow was cutting staff, my divorce had gutted me financially. But that's no excuse. I objectified the one person who made me feel alive. Her vulnerability cracked something in me. A fissure widening to canyon. You made me feel seen, Faith. Then invisible. How do you unlearn that? You don't. You build beside it. She reached for my hand, tentative, and I didn't pull away. Our fingers laced, cold skin warming, and for the first time since Spain, the touch felt like equals, 2 women navigating the same scarred map. The kiss happened unscripted, a slow burn ignited by champagne and confession. Her lips brushed mine soft as a question, and I answered with a sigh, the fire escape our confessional. It was romantic, redemptive, tongues tentative, hands framing faces, the city a indifferent witness. No possession, just presence. Her thumb tracing my jaw, my palm flat against her racing heart. When we broke apart, breathless, she whispered, "Tell me to stop, Ev. If this is too much." But it wasn't. Not then. We tumbled back inside, the party a blur, stealing glances like co-conspirators. By night's end, in the cab weaving toward my place, her head on my shoulder, I let myself dream of bridges rebuilt, of love as collaboration, not conquest. Spring unfurled in Brooklyn's defiant bloom. Cherry blossoms rioting pink against brownstones, farmers' markets hawking ramps and rhubarb. Our reconnection deepened in stolen hours. Picnics in Prospect Park where we'd read drafts aloud, her feedback now laced with encouragement. Sunset jogs along the waterfront, her stride matching mine, no one leading. Faith opened up about her post-Spain years, therapy in Seattle, a string of failed dates with women who couldn't match my ghost, the slow climb back to Willow's helm. You were my mirror, she admitted one dusk, sweat slick on a bench overlooking the harbor, showing me the tyrant I'd become. And I shared the fractures, the panic attacks in hostels, the Brooklyn nights when I'd wake screaming from Villa Dreams, the slow stitch of community, queer writing circles, a chosen family of artists who patched my edges with laughter and lent books. You didn't break me, I told her, lacing our fingers in the grass. You bent me. But bends make stronger steel. The Idol peaked in May, Echoes hitting shelves to quiet buzz. Starred reviews in Kirkus for its lyrical exploration of power and pardon. Bookstore windows framing my pseudonym like a talisman. Faith threw a private reading at her loft, inviting my inner circle. Carla the therapist, my agent with her sharp bob. A handful of queer-lit folks from the open mics. I read the climax. Leah confronting Sophia amid Barcelona's downpour. Accusations melting into absolution. My voice steady, the room wrapped. Afterward, over paella catered from a Spanish spot in the village, her nod to origins minus the chains. Faith pulled me aside in the bedroom, door clicked shut against the murmur. You did it, Ev. Without me. Despite me. With you, I corrected, cupping her face, the kiss that followed deeper, more assured. A promise etched in shared breath. We made out like teens on her unmade bed. Hands roaming with reverence. Clothes a rumple of consent and care. It was intimate, emotional. Whispers of I see you between nips, bodies aligning like puzzle pieces long separated. No rush, no dominance, just two women reclaiming a narrative layer by layer. Lying tangled in sheets scented with her lavender soap, her head pillowed on my chest, I traced the freckles on her shoulder, echoes of my own. This feels like the real plot twist, I murmured half asleep. She chuckled low and warm. The best ones always do. But drama, as any writer knows, demands conflict. And ours was brewing, dark as an Iberian squall. Together. The word anchored me, a lifeline in the swell. Our romance bloomed quiet but fierce. Lazy Sundays lost in the bell jar rereadings, her annotating margins with questions for me. Midnight drives to Coney Island, boardwalk lights painting our faces as we shared cotton candy and confessions. She was softer now, the alpha tempered by accountability. Asking permission before planning weekends, celebrating my small wins with handwritten notes tucked into my bag. To the woman who escaped and conquered. One read, signed with a heart that made my chest ache. Yet shadows lingered, tendrils from Spain uncoiling in dreams. I'd wake gasping, the finca's walls closing in, Faith's old grip phantom on my wrist. She'd hold me then, murmuring apologies into my hair, her body a bulwark against the night. I'm not her anymore, she'd say, and I'd believe her mostly. Humanistic love, I told myself, wasn't perfection. It was persistence, the daily choice to choose better. The fracture cracked open on a sweltering July afternoon, 2 months post-launch. I was at a book festival in McCarran Park, signing copies under a tent that smelled of hot dogs and sunscreen, when a fan approached, mid-40s, salt and pepper buzzcut, voice thick with a Catalan lilt. Evie Lane? Your book. It's like reading my sister's letters from 18. That villa near Emporta, the one with the iron gate? She dated an editor there, American. Broke her heart, but the words. They healed. My pen froze mid-scrawl, ink blotting the page. I'm sorry, what? She leaned in, oblivious to my blanching. Faith Harlan, right? My sis mentioned the red pen, the Rioja nights. Said you captured it perfect, the control, the leak to the press. Brava. The world narrowed to a pinprick, the crowd's chatter a roar in my ears. Faith had talked? Shared our story post-betrayal with strangers? I mumbled pleasantries, fleeing to a porta-potty for air. Hands shaking as I texted her. Park. Now. We need to talk. She arrived 20 minutes later, breezing through the gates in linen shorts and a tank, concern etching her brow. Ev? What's wrong? I dragged her to a shaded bench. Away from the literary bustle, my voice a hiss. A reader just outed my muse. Your ex-sister-in-law? Spill. Her face drained of color. A rare crack in the composure. God, no, it's not like that. After you left, I processed in therapy. Group sessions for expats, anonymized stories. I never named you. But the details, the villa, the gate, the leak? My heart hammered, betrayal's old knife twisting fresh. She rubbed her temples, voice fraying. I generalized. Swore it was composite. But memory's a thief, Ev. It bleeds through. The admission landed like a slap, the humanistic bridge we'd built buckling under the weight. You promised safety, anonymity, and now my scars are group therapy fodder. It was years ago, before I even knew you'd resurface. She reached for me, but I jerked back, the alpha in her eyes flickering, defensive, cornered. Years ago, but the damage? Eternal. I stood, bag slung over shoulder, the festival's joy curdled to ash. I need space. Real space this time. She called after me. Ev, please, let's fix this. But I melted into the crowd, the subway's rattle a mercy. Back in my apartment, I curled on the futon, echoes mocking from the shelf. Its cover a stylized amber vial, cork half-popped, symbolizing release. Irony, thy name is literature. The fallout cascaded like dominoes. I ghosted her emails, dodged calls, poured the hurt into a new short story. A vicious vignette of a lover's careless tongue, submitted to a zine under yet another alias. Carla, in session, urged boundaries. Love doesn't erase history. It honors it. Decide if she's worth the rewrite. Was she? Nights blurred into a haze of wine and Fleabag marathons, the loft's absence a hollow in my bed. Faith respected the space at first, a week then two, but persistence was her hallmark. Bouquets arrived. Wildflowers from a Greenpoint shop, tagged bridges need repairs, not abandonment. Notes followed, penned in her slashing script. I was wrong to share, even veiled. Punish me but don't erase us. By August's end, with humidity breaking into crisp fall harbingers, doubt gnawed. The story published to acclaim, but acclaim felt empty without her sharp intake of breath. Her damn Ev, that's gold. I missed the collaboration, the way her mind meshed with mine like gears long oiled. Humanism demanded grace, didn't it? Forgiveness not as weakness but as strength. I invited her over on Labor Day, the apartment aired out, paella simmering as olive branch. She arrived hesitant, knock soft, auburn hair wind-tousled from the walk. Truce? She asked, holding a bottle of non-alcoholic cider, concession to my clearer head. Talk, I said, gesturing to the couch, plates balanced on knees. We ate in charged silence, then words tumbled. Her detailing the group, the anonymization's flaws. Me voicing the terror of exposure, the old cage's echo. Tears came, hers first, then mine. And in the raw spill, truth surfaced. I fell for the control too, I admitted, wiping my cheek. Your certainty. It made me feel chosen. But chosen isn't owned. She nodded, eyes red-rimmed. I know. And I'll spend every day proving I learned that lesson. The makeup was slow, deliberate. No grand gestures, just presence. A walk in Fort Greene, hands brushing accidental then intentional. A movie night with Carol cued, her commentary a soft counterpoint to my sighs. Romance rekindled in embers. Kisses that tasted of redemption. Bodies entwined with equality's tender weight. It was dramatic, yes, the push-pull of trust rebuilt, but laced with humor. Her fumbling a vegan recipe, my teasing her alpha fail. September brought equilibrium, Echoes option for screen my byline, still pseudonymous, splashed in Publishers Weekly. Faith and I attended the negotiation lunch, her at my side not as editor, but partner, her pride untinged by possession. This is yours, she whispered as we toasted with sparkling water. The Manhattan skyline a testament to reinvention. But drama's arc demands climax, and ours crested on a October eve. Leaves carpeting the streets like confetti from a bittersweet parade. Willow Press announced a European tour for Echoes. Readings in London, Paris, capped by Barcelona. Come with me. I begged her over dinner at our favorite taqueria. The air thick with cilantro and possibility. Face the ghosts together. Her fork paused, face paling. Ev. Spain. It's where I failed you most. Exactly. I covered her hand, pulse sinking. Human endings aren't tidy. They're earned. She agreed, reluctant but resolute. And as we walked home arm in arm, Brooklyn's lights a halo, I felt the story shift. From captivity to co-authorship, betrayal to bond. Little did I know the finale waited across the Atlantic, where old wounds would reopen, demanding one last lacerating choice. The flight to Barcelona was a descent into memory's maw. 12 hours over the Atlantic, Faith's hand in mine, a talisman against turbulence both literal and latent. We landed at El Prat under a Mediterranean sun that seared like accusation, the air humming with jasmine and jet fuel. 5 years since I'd fled this soil, its curves and contours etched in my bones, and now I return not as victim, but author Vilain, flanked by the woman who'd scripted my unmaking. The tour kicked off subdued. A London reading at a queer bookstore in Soho, where rain-slicked dykes packed the shelves, their applause a bomb. Faith sat front row, eyes shining, her presence a quiet anchor. Paris followed. A Seine-side cafe event, Eiffel Tower winking approval. Our nights lost in Montmartre walks, her arm around my waist proprietary but permissioned. You're luminous, she'd murmur into my temple, and I'd lean in, the romance a steady flame against the jet lag's chill. Barcelona loomed like the Act 3 turn, the city unchanged yet alien. La Rambla thronged with tourists, gaudiest mosaics mocking mortality. Willow had booked the Gothic quarter's El Ateneu, a historic hall with vaulted ceilings and the ghosts of anarchists past. I rehearsed in our hotel room, a boutique spot off Passeig de Gracia, balcony overlooking the sprawl, Faith timing me, her notes gentle. Lean into the vulnerability, it's your strength. The night arrived electric, the hall packed. Locals in linen, expats with well-worn copies, a smattering of American faces drawn by the buzz. I took the stage, voice steady as I read the showdown. Leah's rain-drenched fury, Sophia's crumbling facade, the words alive, pulsing with the crowd's held breath. Applause thundered, questions flowed. Is it autobiographical? One woman asked, eyes sharp. I deflected with a smile. All fiction's truth in disguise. But glimpsed Faith in the wings, her nod a private ovation. The signing lines snaked long, hands thrusting books for inscription, voices sharing echoes of their own heart scars. Near the end she appeared. The Catalan woman from McCarran, buzzcut now streaked silver, her sister at her side, the unwitting echo of my past. We came from Tarragona, she said, sliding echoes forward. My sis. She passed last year. Cancer. But this? Gave her peace. Thank Faith for me. She helped shape you both. My pen trembled, ink smudging with grace. Faith, hovering nearby, froze. Recognition dawning like a slow poison. The sister turned, spotting her, face twisting from gratitude to grief. You, she spat, voice slicing the murmur. Tu la destruist. My sister wrote to me after, how you isolated her. Leaked her work for your precious career. She never recovered. The hall hushed, eyes swiveling like spotlights. Faith paled, mouth opening on a denial that died unspoken. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Didn't know. The woman's laugh was bitter shards. You knew enough to pitch her pain. Eviana, or whatever you call yourself now, she fled because of you. And now you parade here, profiting off her ghost. I stepped forward, hand on the woman's arm, voice low. It's not like that. Not anymore. But the damage bloomed, whispers rippling. Harlan? The Harlan scandal. Phones emerged, clicks capturing the tableau, editor, author, accuser locked in frozen drama. The signing collapsed into chaos. Security ushered us out a side door into the humid night, the sisters' sobs echoing off stone. Faith and I stumbled to a nearby plaza, fountain spray a feeble veil, her face ashen under the lanterns. Ev, I swear the group, it was sealed. But her sister. Maybe I let slip once, drunk post-therapy. God, what have I done? Betrayal's specter reared anew, sharper for its familiarity. You shared us, I said, chest tight, the city's pulse mocking our unraveling. Again, without thinking of the fallout. She sank onto a bench, head in hands, the alpha utterly undone. I'm poison. Always have been. You should go back to Brooklyn alone. Deserve better. The words hung, a crossroads etched in moonlight. Part of me wanted to sever the thread, reclaim solitude's sharp freedom. But humanism whispered otherwise. People weren't plots, tidy in resolution. We were messy amalgams of mistake and mend. Love a verb demanding vigilance. Faith had evolved or tried, her apologies not alibis but actions. The space she'd granted, the equality she'd forged. This? A relapse human as breath. I sat beside her, the stone cool through my dress, and took her hand, trembling real. We're both poison sometimes. But antidotes exist. If we choose them. She looked up, eyes sea deep with hope and hurt. And if we don't? If this breaks us for good? Then we write the ending honest. I pulled her close, foreheads touching, tears mingling with the fountain's mist. No more captives. Just companions. The confrontation's ripple faded slow. A viral tweet storm echoes scandal. That Willow's PR spun into raw authenticity, boosting sales ironically. The sister accepted a quiet apology over coffee days later, her grief channeled into a tentative friendship, a bridge from pain to shared story. Faith and I returned to New York changed, therapy doubled, boundaries redrawn, our love a deliberate practice. Back in Brooklyn, winter's grip loosening to spring's promise, I revised a sequel. Bridges in Amber, where redemption wasn't erasure but excavation. Faith edited still, her red pen kinder. Our evenings a rhythm of read-alouds and red wine. We'd walk the bridge at dawn, hands linked, the skyline a canvas of second chances. Was it happy? Not Hollywood tidy. Conflicts lingered like fault lines in earth. But humanistic, yes. Two women scarred and striving, choosing each other daily. In the end, love wasn't conquest or captivity. It was co-creation, echoes harmonizing into song. And as I typed the final period, Faith asleep beside me, her breath a soft tide, I knew. This was the real revelation. Not the book, but the life we'd inked together.